Hello, good day again, good people of the Philippines. Today we'll be continuing our discussion with our subject, the law on obligations and contracts. And then basically, we'll be touching now obligations with a period. So hope so it could be recorded in one setting here. And we'll be tackling it comprehensively. I know we could tackle this one comprehensively. And to start with, let's have Article 1193. And the exact provisions of 1193 says, obligations for whose fulfillment a day certain has been fixed shall be demandable only when that day comes. And obligations with resolutory period take effect at once, but terminate upon the arrival of the day certain. A day certain is understood to be which must necessarily come, although it may not be known when. If the uncertainty consists in whether the day will come or not, the obligation is conditional, and it shall be regulated by the rules of the preceding section. So basically, under section 2, the very question now is that when could we say that an obligation is with a period, or how would we classify is an obligation if it's with a period? So basically if it is subjected in one way or another to an expiration of a period or a term, then it is an obligation with a period. Easy as that, So, other way of saying it, kapag siya ay yung demandability niya at the same time yung extinguishment ay subject sa expiration ng isang term or period, then we could say that it is an obligation with a period. So here, what is then a period, or what are the requisites of a period? Ang requisites ng period, it should be what? It should be a future in a certain event which is possible, and at the same time it should be legally and physically possible, since we have discussed this one partially already in the past. So it should be a future in a certain event, and upon arrival of which the obligation subject to it's either would arise or is terminated. So here, it should necessarily come, although it may not be known, like a death of a person. So it should necessarily come. A day certain, it's very important as well to define what is a day certain. A day certain, it's like saying that should necessarily come whether we like it or not, although it may not be known. So it's still a period. So like a death of a person. So basically it would necessarily come, although we would not know whether we like it or not, would not know it. When would that be? So there are certain kinds of periods. So here, if we have yet to differentiate muna, the difference between a period or a condition, right? A period or term as against with a condition. So as to fulfillment, ano bang kaibahan? What's the difference between a period as against with a condition? A period is a certain event which must happen sooner or later at a date known beforehand, or at a time which cannot be determined. However, a condition is an uncertain event, or usually it's uncertain facts, event or fact. That's a condition. As to time naman, a period refers only to a future time. Pero, ang condition, it could refer as well to a past event unknown to the parties. As to the influence of the obligation, tatandaan natin na when it comes to a period or term, basically, it exerts an influence upon the time of the demandability and the extinguishment of the obligation. So, meron siyang it exerts influence, ano, kapag period. So, a period here fixes the time for the effectivity, yun na nga as what I've said, of the obligation. Then, if the period is suspensive, it cannot prevent the birth of the obligation in due time. And if the period is resolutory, then it does not annul in fiction the fact of its existence. As to the influence on the obligation, ang kondisyon, meron ba? Yes, a condition causes an obligation to arise or to cease. So it really has an influence upon the very existence of the obligation itself, diba? So yun yung condition. As to the effect naman, retroactivity, specifically here, retroactivity, but as to the effect when it is left exclusively on the debtor's will. Kapag ang period, which depends upon the will of the debtor, it empowers the court to fix the duration thereof. So the court is given the discretion to fix for the period. However, or on the other hand, ang condition, if it depends only upon the sole will of the debtor, napag-aralan na, it invalidates the obligation. So we have studied this one already, right? So yun po, when it comes to the period, so basically, if it's left exclusively on the will of the debtor, then the obligation is not actually affected. However, the court has a right or the discretion to fix for the duration. Kapag naman sa debtor, so basically the very existence of the obligation is affected, it would be invalidated, the obligation would be invalidated. As to the retroactivity naman, so we know for a fact that condition has a retroactive effect. However, the period or a term does not have a retroactive effect, not unless there is an agreement to the contrary. So here, unless there is an agreement to the contrary, ang period or term talaga ay may retroactive na effect. The arrival of the period that does not have a retroactive na effect. The happening of a condition has retroactive effect. So take note of that. Like a condition, a period must be possible. If the period is impossible, then the obligation as well is considered void. Dapat makalipat to dito. Anyway, let's have a discussion on the kinds of period. So basically, we have already had an idea on this one, suspensive period and we have suspensive period and a resolutory period. So a suspensive period or XDA, here it is actually a period which must lapse before the obligation can be demanded, kasi as what we know, the happening of the period would make the obligation effective, or the acquisition of the arrival of the period. Hindi na pala happening kasi hindi na po tayo condition. The arrival of the period, ang mangyayari ay would cause of the acquisition ng rights. So, the obligation begins only from the day certain upon the arrival of the period. So, what is suspended is not the obligation itself, but merely the demandability. So, therefore, the period must lapse before the obligation could be demanded. So, that is suspensive period, XDA. XDM, or resolutory period. Here, it's actually a period after which the obligation is extinguished. So, like a condition. So the obligation is valid up to the day certain and terminates upon the arrival of the period. So nothing new. We've understand this one already. So therefore pala, in short way of saying it, that the arrival of the day certain would basically terminate the obligation. So according to source naman, we have classification of period. According to source, we have one which is granted by law, one which is voluntary or conventional, which is stipulated or agreed by the parties, and judicial period if it is, or legal, a judicial which is fixed by the courts. According to definiteness naman, kapag sinasabi natin a definite period, then it is when it is known and it will come. So basically dito, when you say definite, the time is really known beforehand. Unlike an indefinite na period, basically it is not fixed or it's not known on when it will come, or where the period is not fixed, but a period is intended. The courts are also empowered by the law to fix the same. So here, when it comes to tawag nito, according to definiteness. So when say definite, as an example, let's say for example, I will give you my car on December 20, 2020. Very definite yun. Kapag naman sinasabing indefinite, edi sasabihin ko na lang ay I will give you my car in case, I'll give you my car on the death of, sino ba? Of Y. Huwag naman tayo mag-wish ng, okay, in the death of Y. So, it's basically a period that is not known, but it will necessarily come. Ano? Question. When we know that something will happen, but we are not certain as to the time it will happen, how would you classify that? Is it a period or a condition? When we know something will happen, but we are not certain as to the time it will happen. So that's a period, tama. However, when we are not even sure if something will happen as a fact, or not, or as an event or not. So basically, that is a condition. So yun lang po. So if you have questions, just maybe I'll open for the comments. So I have one more example for this part. As an example, there is this one corporation who is engaging in a sale of subdivision house and lots. And then this subdivision, so pagpapalagay, Camellia sold a house and lot to me measuring at 1,000. So our contract provides that Camellia will put up a drainage system within a reasonable time from the date of our contract, and there would be sufficient na mga buyers on their lots. 5 years thereafter ngayon, ay Camellia haven't constructed the drainage system as well as the lot. How would you consider, or would we consider, the contract being entered into na may nakalagay na I will construct the artesian well or the tank at the same time the drainage within a reasonable time? Is it an obligation with a period? Is it subject to a period? So yes, of course it is subject to a period. So if it is not really known, then we'll go to court, and then we'll get the court, we'll have the court fixed for the date of the performance. So if in cases man we would go to court and ask for the specific performance of the obligation given the terms of the contract says within the reasonable time. Would that case prosper if after 5 years wala pa ding nagiging building? Of course, it would not prosper. So we'll have the court first we'll have kasi the obligation is to be performed within a reasonable time, diba? So the performance of which is in the future and not until there would be tawag nito na, paano ba yung ating nagiging? They have sufficient buyers and there would be a reasonable time from the date of the contract. So basically, it's not known nga, then the court will have to fix for that date, and after the date is being fixed by the court, then si Camellia ay magko-comply na, saka pa rin siya magko-comply sa kanyang mga obligations. Then, right after, if there will be no compliance after the fixing, saka pa po comes into play yung ating pong action for a specific performance. Ano po,